Hey, Grandma, pass me the Lotus Petals. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video. Before I get started here, I just want to say the donation queue is getting a little bit low. I know many of you might be kind of waiting until December 16th when we get some bans to shake up the format to submit things, but I am looking for things to play in the next week or two. Information is down in every video description if you're interested in making that happen. So, with that being said, our deck list today comes from Simon 2 specifically, who wants us to go and play with a neat Psychic Frog deck. Now, Psychic Frog is kind of the boogeyman of the format at this point. And it is very good in Reanimator, it is very good in Tempo Shells, it is very good in Combo decks, it is very good in everything else that I haven't already listed, and I don't expect that this card is going to be legal for much longer. So, before it gets banned, let's try to do a couple of fun things with it. Specifically, discarding Echo of Eons is something kind of cute that Psychic Frog can do. And while we do have the traditional Brainstorm, Ponder, Force of Will, Daze shell that we might get from a Psychic Frog deck, the Chrome Mox and Lotus Petals here are not standard for a blue deck of this nature. So we are looking to play one of three big haymakers early on in a game. We want to drop our Psychic Frog, we want to drop our Goyf, or we want to drop the One Ring, and we want to ride these things to a fast victory. We do have some early game plays. We are only on 2 Tamios here. And you'll notice there's less of an emphasis on interacting with resolved things here. So we have 2 Brazen Borrowers to bounce things out of play, but we don't have anything like main deck Fatal Push to supplement that. We're kind of trying to be a pseudo combo deck where we just go real hard on a Psychic Frog or a Goyf quickly. And the most interesting card that's here is one that I've seen slip through into Legacy a couple of different times, Ripples of Undeath. At the beginning of your first main phase, mill 3 cards. Then you can pay 1 and 3 life. If you do, put a card from among those cards into your hand. So within the context of this deck, this can give you fuel to give Psychic Frog flying. This can be growing your Goyf, which should be larger than normal because you have artifacts within your deck as well to hit. This can be a source of card advantage. This can be a way to put an Echo into your graveyard here. There is a lot to like. Now, there is one Nanbo within the deck list. I don't know that it's going to come up much, but you know. Barrowgoyf's power and toughness is equal to the number of card types in all graveyards. Toughness equal to that number plus 1. So, if we Echo, we are losing both graveyards. So, this sometimes can work against this side of the deck, but if we have chosen to draw 7 cards, doing so is probably profitable for us, and hopefully we can put cards back into the graveyard relatively quickly. Sideboard doesn't really have anything too exciting. We do end up with some copies of targeted removal so that when we're playing against an opposing aggro deck of some kind, we can do that. Otherwise, we have the big middle finger to Eldrazi that everyone is playing, a little bit of graveyard hate of various natures. We are packing Null Rods today, which, you know, has some real downside here, but, you know, if you resolve a Null Rod in the matchups where you are bringing in the Null Rod, it should be incredibly impactful. So yeah, let's see how this plays out. Folks, should you need any cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. If you use promo code ThrabenU, you will save 5% on your order. And I recently did some local shopping, and I was reminded of how nice it is sometimes to just be able to get everything online in one place instead of running around to, I don't know, picking a number at random, 3 local game stores to get something accomplished. It was a lot of driving. With that being said, let's battle. Bill from the future here. Round 1 is the clunkiest round with this deck. The rest of the league goes really well as a whole, and this is one of those times where, like, if you're discouraged after the first round, maybe keep watching. It's actually a really interesting and intricate league. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this hand. We are not able to play these Psychic Frogs immediately, but we do have a Tameo a way to draw some clues, and if we need to, we can pitch a Psychic Frog to Force of Will. I think this means that this is overall fine. We will see whether or not I am actually correct. Ooh, that's a nice island. MTG Foundation's art continues to impress. Bazaar of Baghdadi is also an A+ username. Well done. Blooded Strand. You've got it. Alright. Let's go get our clue. I wish we were playing Psychic Frog this turn, but hopefully this is just a strong enough thing that it doesn't particularly matter. Thundering Falls. Are we sneak and showing, perhaps? Huh? We'll go ahead and crack this end of turn. I don't think we're trying to flip this immediately. That's a very awkward draw. That's probably a fine draw. I will probably do that this turn. Hitting the land drop's a pretty big deal. Yeah. I think I Wasteland now, so that if I cast Brainstorm and my opponent dazes, they don't get to bounce this land back to hand. So let's just take this out now. Then we'll go for a Brainstorm. Ooh. Let's put back some black cards that we can't cast here. Flip our Tamiyo into Planeswalker mode. Obligatory +2 here. Oh no. Hello? Okay, there we go. We are going to Ponder to shuffle here. Unless the third card down is just a fetch land, which it is not. We will shuffle that. Hopefully we just have like Daze, Force of Will versus a combo deck, and it's fine. So we're down 2 draw steps, 3 brainstorms looks, 4 ponder looks without hitting another land. I need to keep these dazes on. I think the Echo is the least good thing here. I need land drops. Fantastic. Come on, Moto. You can do it, bud. So now we'll Frog. I think I just immediately get back that Force of Will. Because now I have Force of Will days available. I think that's just safer than trying to quickly ride Tamiyo to victory. Yeah, I think I have correctly identified this as Sneak and Show. Alright, there's a sneak attack. I daze it. Oh, it was just successful. Fantastic. So, plus Tamiyo. I don't think I'm dumping any cards to Psychic Frog just yet. Sure. Play this one, pass the turn. This is a 5/6 creature, which is pretty respectable. Okay, my opponent has just given up. Honestly, fair. So, Force of Negation is pretty good. I think we're doing that despite my opponent playing Vexing Baubles as protection. What about Consign to Memory? This can help versus the One Ring. If my opponent is playing that as a pivot plan, this can help against some Atraxa triggers. I don't have the Fatal Push type nonsense that I normally might want to board out here. I think I'm going to get rid of the Echoes and bring in Force of Negation. The other cards in my deck are pretty reasonable. Ripples of Undeath is slow. It's like fine if I play it out on turn 1 as a source of card advantage. I think I'm going to run this. Yeah, here we see these Wastelands being pretty rough. I think I am keeping the hand. It's the same one as last time. We won last time. My opponent now knows the matchup, though. Basic land. No shuffle on Ponder. I need Underground Sea here. We'll get this Tamiyo going. We will not get this Tamiyo going. That is not worth my only counter spell here. You a second main phase hipster? You are. So I will go ahead and brainstorm here. I would really like to draw a fetch land. Basic island and a spell pierce. Okay. I think I am just going to accept that, and a decent portion of the time I draw a land or Chrome Mox or whatever that just lets me play something that means that I don't care about the brainstorm anymore. New brainstorm is fine. Probably not going to be the most efficient thing in the world. This is an unmitigated disaster. I may lose this game for having Wasteland in my deck. We'll put back the One Ring and a black card that doesn't pitch to Force of Will. That was a very statistically bad brainstorm. Alright. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. For 4 mana, put a creature card exiled with this onto the battlefield under your control. I will answer that with a daze. Hello? Why are we lagging today? Magic Online. Okay, it seems I've figured it out. So bounce that. Okay, cool. So now on my next turn, I need to decide whether or not I'm wastelanding this. Any land currently lets me play one of these, including the wasteland. Any non-wasteland land lets me play this. I have 2 Force of Wills available if I keep both Psychic Frogs in hand, and I have ever so slightly more top decks towards putting one of these in play. I think I am not wastelanding. Your Brainstorm is fine. We are not fighting over cards that look like that right now. More generally, I'm not sure that it was correct for my opponent to Spell Pierce this Brainstorm. It is buying them some time here, but using that to protect a win condition seems better to me. Eventually, the floodgates are going to open, and I am going to, I think, pull ahead very, very quickly. My opponent can do a Surveil land here, but like since they used resources on one of my early cantrips, it's pretty likely that 2 pieces of interaction on my end outdoes what they are going to be capable of. Because they presumably need something like Show and Tell plus creature. That I have to answer. So yeah. Anyway, so they need like Show and Tell plus creature or Sneak Attack plus creature. That's 2 of the cards in their hand. And if they need something like Force of Will beyond that, that is 2 more cards. Well, the good news is I have another counterspell. Bad news is I'm a fourth of the way through my deck and I've only seen 1 colored source. Cool. Deck. Come on. Your Brainstorms are fine. Again, not interested in fighting over things that look like that. New land drop. So I have to Force of Will this one. I can't daze it successfully. My opponent is presumably going to fight back. Wrong presumption. My daze here does very little now. This is kind of insane. So there's a Tamiyo. I could wasteland this and attempt to make daze more live, but then I can't even crack clues. I think I'm trying to dodge for a turn. Did not succeed in dodging. I accept. Let's see how bad it is. It is a Traxa. So that is a refuel. That is a refuel that is instantly going to give an Emrakul. Dead. So if I take out this, my opponent can go 1, 2, 3, 4, cast this. I get another turn. I take a draw. It's a Lotus Petal. I use Lotus Petal to draw a card. It's the 1 ring. That just did not work out. Yeah, so we're on 17 lands plus 8 pieces of artifact mana. That seems statistically unlikely. But here we are. I think this round already has convinced me that I do not want Wastelands in this deck. This has a bunch of counter magic in it. I accordingly probably keep this. I don't have an initial threat, which I am not the biggest fan of. I don't have my second color, which I am not the biggest fan of. So this cannot actually play a Psychic Frog on turn 2. I have no black card that I could imprint. I do not believe that this is a keep. Brainstorm. Sure. My opponent last round was very aggressive in attacking the early cards that I played, just trading 1 for 1 whenever possible. So when I cast this Brainstorm, they might just like Spell Pierce it or something, which is inconvenient potentially for me. Yeah. I think I'm casting it anyway. I would like to make a land drop. Fuck me, I guess. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of disastrous. So next turn, I can Chrome Mox, imprint, black, Lotus Petal, play one of these. Put the 1 ring 2 down. Put one of these on deck. Play this. I think in respect of opposing Spell Pierce and such, I do go ahead and put this under immediately. I don't think I want to Lotus Petal to Tamiyo. So we have somewhere between double and triple counterspell available to us. There's a fetch. And we're chilling. I think I will have to use a counterspell to protect this if my opponent attempts to counter this. But it is in play. So now it grows, because there's the first land in graveyard. And we've got a Surveil land. Junking an Ancient Tomb. So opponent is not looking for mana. They're probably looking for either business or protection. There's an Ancient Tomb. Gotta get rid of that. There's already an artifact in graveyard. Let's Force a Will that one. Pitching Tameo. Spell Pierce. Unfortunate. So that does get countered. I now can't daze this, so I have to Force of Negation it so that my future counter spells are live. I know my draw for turn is not good. So my opponent can probably go for a win the following turn safely now. This is what the Spell Pierce is supposed to be used for. Like, that feels so much better than what they did with it in the previous game. Like, I plunked all over myself for my Brainstorm being countered, but I do not think that that was an average experience, even if my deck is a little clunky compared to something lean and elegant like a blue-black tempo deck. To send this in, opponent gets hit for 4. Yeah, Brazen Borrower is about the ideal, because that gives me a way to potentially get a show and tell creature out of play. So, soft permission like Daze's getting worse very quickly here. Yes, you may have that. Absolutely. So now the only question is, do I Magus of the Moon that out of... Sorry, do I Brazen Borrower that out of play? This is technically denying my opponent mana. Maybe gaining them 4 life. Yeah, you can have this. Sure. It does not feel like I am hitting the average number of lands that I should be hitting. Alright, so now this grows to a 5. Wool Pass. Brainstorm's fine. It's probably very good, even. My opponent in this spot is looking to set up Counterspell or Vexing Bauble plus way to go off before I can hit them 3 times. I think the easiest way for me to win here is for them to Brainstorm lock themselves, I draw a land, and then I just go. This is a sneak attack. So that is happening. Now, whatever my opponent puts into play, I can take out of play, in theory. So that's an Atraxa. So I have a choice, and I need to make it now. I can take Atraxa out of play, or I can take Sneak Attack out of play. My opponent is about to look at 10 cards. I have 27 life. My life isn't an issue. Their life is. If I draw a land, I can play another Goyf and be threatening to kill them next turn. If I take the Sneak Attack out of play, my opponent can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and still just activate that very easily without anything else being drawn. I think I'm going to try to stop the life as a I don't know. That means they're going to get another Atraxa trigger. A bouncy Atraxa to hand. I don't think it's correct to wait until after this trigger resolves, because then they can have extra counter magic to protect their stuff. Let's Petty Theft the Sneak Attack out of play. This means that I don't just win the game super, super quickly, because my opponent will be at 18. This is not great. This means that I just lose next turn, because my opponent can go Force of Will plus blue card plus Emrakul. Force of Will plus blue card even, plus Emrakul. Yeah. If I get hit for 7, my opponent gains 7. They sacrifice that creature. Don't currently have a way to stop getting Emrakuled, especially through Force of Will. Mill a blue creature? No, that's not really going to do it, is it? If I hit for 6, I mill 6, I don't hit any like Psychic Frogs or anything. Yeah, that very easily leaves me dead, but they don't know that yet. So they can put something on the stack and then I'll concede. I have looked at roughly half my deck and found 1 land. I'm just saying. I don't know that my experience here is average. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is an absolutely awesome place to keep all of your deck lists. I keep all of my personal deck lists there as well, in addition to all of the stuff that I do for the stream. And in the future, they're going to have a social media site on here too. So if you're worried about other certain websites dying, maybe join Moxfield, put your deck lists up there, and in the future, you'll be there for social media stuff too. Okay, our hand does not have functional mana. We have to just mulligan this. Well, the good news is we have lands this time, so we're going to keep this one. We'll pitch 1 of those lands. We have turn 2 Psychic Frog into turn 3 Goyf. Alright, my daze is not game for this first turn here, which may be relevant if my opponent plays something meaningful on turn 1. So I am almost certainly going to do a Surveil land on my first turn and fetch Basic Swamp on my second turn. I probably need to lead this in a way where I can have the flexibility to do either one of those. Either one of those being the Basic Swamp on turn 1 if my opponent just immediately represents Blood Moon. We're just going to play our land and pass. Again, our Daze is currently not online. Whatever my opponent does is happening. And we are not a removal-heavy deck in game 1. Opponent doing a lot of self-damage here. 4 mana. 1 ring, maybe? Yep. That's occurring. So I could just brainstorm to put a card type in graveyard for my Goyf here. And just kind of curve out better while maybe getting rid of Daze. I think I am into that. Because I'm pretty committed to just playing creatures over the next couple of turns. I, in theory, would like to play this when it is a little bit bigger. We kind of have a lot of garbage here. Such is life. So let's grab our basics so that we're functional if we do get Blood Mooned. And we'll play a Psychic Frog. I basically have a 2-card hand right now, so I am quite willing to go in on Psychic Frog, especially with my opponent having dealt 7 points of damage to themselves already. Like, as long as I keep this out of range of dying to something like Barrowgoyf, this can go very, very hard, especially when coupled with the Goyf the following turn. Sort of interestingly, though, I don't really want to give Psychic Frog flying right now, because there are only 2 card types in graveyard for my Goyf. There's 1 card type in graveyard for my Goyf. Sure. A lot of Moto lag today. New land drop. That's all that my opponent is accomplishing for the turn, which is fine by me. Let's go to Punchies and send in. No blocks. I think we are interested in a little bit of nonsense here. Come on, meta. I think I am willing to junk a land here as well. You're now outside of the range of regular red removal. I don't think my Daze is doing anything meaningful. And I'm not expecting game 1 red elemental blast or anything. We'll go 1 more. So this is 5 damage. I get to draw a card. Ponder's kind of whatever. We're just dropping another threat here. My opponent can eat my artifact with Ghost Vacuum here. I have lethal or lethal adjacent damage as of next turn. And I don't think they're in a good spot. I think the way that their turn goes okay is if they draw 3 cards with the 1 ring and then play a new copy of the 1 ring. But then that is the majority of their mana. Vexing Bauble is incredibly good against my deck, by the way. It's going to hit my artifact mana and my counterspells simultaneously. We are probably boarding in all 4 copies of this to help fight against Vexing Bauble in the 1 ring. And probably some amount of spot removal. Broadside's good. That actually doesn't get rid of my frog, though. This has Menace, so I can't block it. I'll take 2. There's a land drop. Vexing Bauble is going. This can potentially set up a Fury. Okay. Fury for... Okay, so it's throwing the 1 ring at Psychic Frog, which currently kills it. 4+2. I'm going to discard this Ponder to make my Psychic Frog live. It's stupid. So now Fury could clear Psychic Frog, but then I am still attacking for a reasonable amount of damage, and my opponent can't take out both of these. They would need 2 Furies, which I guess is possible, but highly unlikely. There's also no creatures in graveyard yet. My Goyf is swinging out pretty hard next turn. Ghost Vacuum can take out a Ponder. Only 1 sorcery. Yep. Frog's cool. So this is probably an attack for 4. Send it. Yep. There goes the Ponder. So we're going to mill 4 cards. I don't get to return anything. There's an Echo. Do not believe that I'm interested in casting that given how close I am to killing my opponent. I'm going to play out a Psychic Frog that I fully expect to die. Like, a broadside attack just kills that, but that forces the broadside to attack, meaning that my opponent has to play something else that defensively gets in the way of this. I guess I should not yield through the turn. There's some consideration to Responding to a Ghost Vacuum? Sure. The one of those can attack and ping Psychic Frog by probably throwing Chrome Mox. The other can be held back defensively. Yep, that is occurring. So now some mana is gone, so I'm less worried about Ghost Vacuum being activated meaningfully. Lotus Petal is not currently relevant. Send in, presumably get the chump block here. Yep. I'm going to play out the Lotus Petal in case my opponent plays a Vexing Bubble. I don't think I am interested in the Echo, because as soon as my opponent does not have a valid chump blocker, they die. And considering that the average mana value of a chump blocker in that deck is going to be 3, I think I am happy continuing to play this game like this. Hey, there's the Vexing Bubble that I played around. And a new broadside. Sure. So that can kill a Goyf, right? Throw 5, throw 3. Yeah, so once this leaves play, I am interested in Echo. We'll see if my opponent has forgotten about that card. They did not. Ooh, Echo was actually the only sorcery, which means that throw 5 is actually enough now. I might die. Ooh. Oh, are you going to throw Ghost Vacuum as well and keep double broadside? Yes. Okay. Unsure if that is better. I'm going to hold this because of Brainstorm. Fable is very good value for my opponent here. This is just going to be a source of treasures to throw with broadside. One of my easiest ways to win is just draw a Brazen Borrower, flash it in at end step, and just attack my opponent for 3 in the air. Throwing anything? Not throwing anything. I don't really want to cast a Force of Will, but I might be casting one. If my opponent plays something with a decent mana value, I have to counter it. I'm taking 6 in combat. On board currently, I could take another 5, 6, 7 beyond that. So if my opponent casts some, like, 1 ring-sized card, I just need to counter that or I die. No looting. Hate that for me. You get your treasure, which is potentially 2 points of damage. We get a broadside throw off that treasure. You can have Chrome Mox, that's fine. Just choosing not to throw? Sure. Let's try to fix this. No. This is very easily lethal on board now. Okay. That's a disappointing loss, but well played by my opponent. So with my opponent having main deck Ghost Vacuum, these Echoes just have to go. They are probably going to be replaced by removal. Vexing Bobble is such a huge issue that I probably need to be thinking about consigned to memory in some real number. Ripples feels slow, but is a way to grow these to problematic size. The life cost is pretty real. Tamiyo conceptually doesn't seem that strong, seems kind of like a distraction. Feels like I'm not hitting enough mana a lot of times for me to like daze and then be able to cast these cards afterwards. Let's do these. I think I need all of these, which I think means that we're doing something like this. Doesn't feel like my Force of Will count is actually all that great. A lot of artifacts. I have a lot of black cards that don't contribute towards that Force of Will count. I still think I need it to get me out of the early game. Triple black card, awkward. I'm going to keep it. And it looks like we are playing a fair game that might get to cast a counterspell eventually. I need to grow these. I need these to preferably be outside of Fury range before I do it. Instant and land are easy. Creature probably incidentally happens as well. Opponent took 1 mulligan. Here we go. That is resolving. So now a card that I have deemed problematic against my deck is in play successfully. Hate that. And that means that that is resolving as well. So now I am hoping that I just top deck another land and can just deploy one of these. We wanted a land or a cantrip for this draw quite badly. Sure. My opponent plays the 1 ring here. It just dodges my interaction. No play. Wild. In which case, I probably don't get basic land. I probably get Undercity Sewers and try to find another land. I succeed. It's not the land that I want. It's the land that I got, though. I would love a basic land here. But I did not have that fortune. Do I get a basic? No. I think there's times in the not too distant future where I end up doing something like double Long Goodbye in a turn cycle. So unfortunately, as a 3/4, this is currently Furyable, and I don't love that. Hardcast Fury is a threat that doesn't get answered by Long Goodbye. The One Ring occurs. You can have your card. Now this means that I don't get to immediately grow this outside of range of Fury, which is annoying. The good news is that Pitchcast Fury runs into Vexing Bobble currently. Sure. We'll play another one of these. And my combat damage can't happen this turn, so I can't grow this. This does represent my basic swamp, though. And if I draw a new land next turn, I can just hardcast a Force of Will to stop a big play like a Fury from happening. I also have 2 bodies available immediately for Menace for a broadside if that were to happen. Take 1. Sure. Ghost Vacuum is annoying, but is happening. I can manipulate the size of both of these simultaneously. There's a lot of mana. 6 mana. Conjure Awaken Inferno isn't very common. Is this just a Shatter Skull Smashing or something? What are we doing? Or is it just overpaying for Fury? Okay, yeah, this is a Shatter Skull Smashing. I'm just going to confirm. I don't have a second Surveil land, right? I have 1 Surveil land. Sure. So, this is a sorcery. So there is now a sorcery in graveyard, so opponent needs to Ghost Vacuum either instant or sorcery out of graveyard to actually kill this successfully, which is happening. So, Brazen Borrower. Well, that's a thing. Send in. Hit for 3. Trigger. Yes. Do not succeed in hitting a relevant card. I don't have a land, so I can't Force of Will next turn. I think I'm holding up 2 of these immediately rather than doing something like bouncing the One Ring out of play here. Because I probably only need to connect with this one more time to win. Between my opponent's Ancient Tomb and their damage from the One Ring. So I think if I just Long Goodbye a threat, Brazen Borrower, something, I end up being totally fine. Opponent also somewhat likely to time out at this point. Yeah, broadside's fine. I will Long Goodbye that at the beginning of combat. Give it a Long Goodbye. So my opponent now has 5 minutes for game 3. And that is perfectly possible while playing that deck. They've been moving slowly. There has been some real Magic Online lag today, so I don't know whether or not that's truly on them or not. So, what do I want to do here? I'm so afraid of just eating it to Vexing Bobble on turn 1. I'm almost afraid enough to just play more counterspells, even though I don't really want counterspells in the matchup. Consigned to Memory is much worse on the draw. It still matters for the One Ring. I still desperately want to counter that card with Consigned to Memory. I think this is giving me a Force of Negation. And I think since I'm on the draw, I'm going to do this. Whatever has happened here, I hate it. I love this. So this is 2 removal spells. This is a Force of Negation for something unfair, and then a large lifelinky creature that I can stick that is hopefully a decent size. I am down for this. I have a really tough choice if my opponent plays a Ghost Vacuum on turn 1, though. That's not happening this time. The One Ring. Sure. Now I, in theory, would like 2 more lands. I would like this Brainstorm to help me find those lands, but that may or may not be a realistic option for me. Alright, what are we doing about that? Am I just letting that resolve? I think I'm letting that resolve. And then using Brainstorm in a fair capacity. I think I want to Surveil land here. It really smooths things out a lot for me. Yeah, so that helps grow this outside of range of removal. Deck! I'm fine casting an immediate Brainstorm here. Oh, Wasteland's very good. I'm very far away from wanting these One Rings. Do I draw one of them to Wasteland my opponent? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Because I think I am just going to play a 3-drop and pull very far ahead in this game. And then we can Wasteland a little bit later. Yes, that occurs. My opponent is playing the wrong sort of game for the amount of time that they have on the clock. I don't think that they can play this long controlling game with Vexing Bobbles and Ghost Vacuums with this amount of time on the clock and still realistically pull off a win. I am fine doing this even though it means that I am not necessarily holding up Force of Negation. My mana is not allowing that anyway. I could have fetched differently in order to allow that. But I'm very sure that I want access to black mana through a Blood Moon effect. Alright, we're chilling. I would love a land here. Land means that I can wasteland while playing a new one of these. I never want to lose 2 of these to 1 Fury, which could happen as of right now. So I think I'm into casting Ponder. These are fine cards that I can't do anything with immediately. So I think I'm just going to say any order here and shuffle. Chrome Mox is totally fine. Okay. So now I'm going to probably hit for 2 here. Oh wait, Chrome Mox is not totally fine. It may become fine. Mill 2. Ooh. I'll take a Brazen Borrower. I want my mana. I also don't want my opponent to have mana. But I think I want my mana. I'm just going to discard. I'm going to discard Force of Negation over Chrome Mox here. Our opponent is just fully not playing Magic this game, which is great for me. So I will just continue to send in here, playing this control role. You may eat my Psychic Frog. I'll deal 2. Mill 2. Nice. So there's 1 artifact in graveyard. I'm going to put a second artifact into graveyard. I could also just pass the turn with Brazen Borrower and all my removal available rather than tapping out. Yeah, that's fine. Put a second one of these in graveyard. I would discard this anyway. I just don't think I want to end up in a spot where my opponent randomly connects with a broadside in a way that's very bad for me. Alright, Force of Negation online now, which is super relevant. You can have that. Barrowgoyf. Barrowgoyf does not kill this. They just check each other. So that's fine. Let's just dismember this. And I'm going to pay life so that I have other cards available here. We're going to keep Ghost Vacuum from doing some tricksies here. So, -2. Please heal my Goyf. And we take that one out. So, I think my opponent did not play a good last game. I think they need to mulligan a controlling hand like that. I am still at full life when my opponent has used almost all of their clock. Like, if you are down that far on time, you have to respect your clock, I think, and keep a hand that can finish the game within 5 minutes, and I don't believe that my opponent did that. And I think they lost because of it. Alright, this is going to be a... Yeah, sorry, let me mute that. Anyway, this is going to be a very different sort of hand. This is the first time that we are going to get Ripples of Undeath going. We'll see whether or not it's actually any good. So I dislike the fact that this is going to be costing me a mana to draw a card. But I like the fact that this is going to make my Goyf friend very thick. Alright. You may have your Jack-o'-lantern. So we are presumably playing against an Oops All Spells variant. I'm going to mill 3 here. The mill is related? Oh, no. The mill has already happened. So we get Ponder or Brazen Borrower. I'm going to say no. I am just going to stick my threat. Casting Ponder probably does not get me to a second counterspell this turn. Ponder would have to hit one of my 3 dazes specifically. Sure. That's just a raw redraw, which probably means that my opponent isn't comboing off this turn, which is good. And now we Ripples. Mill 3. Am I interested in a card here? Yeah. Let's take a fetch land. Go to Punchies. Punchies? We've got land and sorcery in there already, so I don't think I need to do anything else pre-combat. So we mill. I will return a Psychic Frog. Put another blue card in hand for future Force of Wills. We're now going to Ponder, looking for a Force of Will or Daze. Wasteland is fine. We can draw a Wasteland followed by Wasteland. So Wasteland. What are these on the other side? So this is an instant. This is a creature. There's not a creature in graveyard right now, so let's do the one that is a creature. And pass. I'm going to pop out my own graveyard here. That resolves. We'll go after the payoff card. That resolves. We will attempt to stop this via Force of Will. A Reanimate could follow this up. and it could be awkward. A Pact of Negation could happen here, but we luck out. So we milled a Wasteland. Or no, so I take my draw, then I mill. Usually this stuff happens in upkeep. It feels weird with this timing. Would I like the One Ring? No. Would I like Brainstorm? Yes. Let's get a Brainstorm. I'm going to hit you for 5. Feels like the deck is really firing on all cylinders right now. Mill 5, get a Tamiyo. Wasteland here. Psychic Frog is lethal next turn. Let's kill my opponent next turn. It's either that or Brainstorm looking for one of the Force of Wills or Dazes, but I have 2 of the Force of Wills in graveyard already. That's not the greatest odds for me. I think I'm just going to hope that I've bottlenecked my opponent on mana. Alright. Fairies in, Counterspells in, Consigned to Memory for Thassa's Oracle trigger in, Grafdigger's Cage in. I do not want to have my opponent refuel. I'm not interested in that. The One Ring is probably too slow here. I need 3 more cuts. Ripples did some serious work there. It's not blue, though. I don't know, this might be better than Tamiyo, outside of not being blue. Brazen Borrow is pretty weak. I can do that. A couple of extra blue cards is definitely relevant, though, over Ripples. Milling 3 to potentially hit one of these is strong, though. Let's try this as is. Yes. I'll need a way to win, but I'm pretty good at not losing immediately. It's just a land and pass, which is great for us. I am good with this 1-for-1 exchange of resources. I have 3 lands in my hand, and not playing Ponder this turn means that I do have double Counterspell available for sure. Not super interested in Chrome Mox right now. I don't think I'm going to play Ponder. I think I'm just going to keep double Counterspell available for right now. I wonder if I'm far enough down the control roll that I board out Chrome Mox. That's fine. We're going to go after the payoff cards. So that requires a Force of Will specifically. I think I will junk Ponder. Act of Negation. I'm already going to have an instant in graveyard with Force of Will in graveyard, so I can Force of Negation that. Now we need to find some business. This would be a great turn to draw a Psychic Frog. Negative. I do not want to be drawing lands right now. Hopefully my opponent can't go again here. F. I'm not sure that I have ways to take that out of play. So we'll Surveil. Well, that certainly doesn't win me this game. So we'll pass the turn, and if my opponent goes for it, I am dead. And they will presumably go for it. Down to 11. Sure. I'm going to take a little combat damage here. And then this is sacrifice a creature, so my opponent has sacrificed the Narcomoeba, leaving them with this creature in play. We're going to take a look at their deck, see if there's anything particularly interesting here. Stifles. Stifle qualifies as interesting. Wonder what the rationale for that is. Yeah, I think I am far enough down the control line that I am going to insert a couple of extra blue cards into my deck over some number of Chrome Mox. I think that raw blue count just matters so much. This is fine. It has a piece of interaction, kind of a second piece of interaction. I can brainstorm beyond that. I'm not the most excited about this. I can't deploy my black cards, but I don't know that I throw back something that looks like this. Opponent kept their 7 this time, which can certainly be scary for me. I am going to respond to that. I'm going to hide the Force of Will on top and hope that my opponent doesn't just like double Dark Ritual go off immediately. I lose a Brainstorm. Seems like I am getting another turn, which is great. So we'll junk one of my opponent's lands. And I have a Force of Will available. Fantastic. I'll try to get a little deeper in my deck here. Love that. Tap out for Ripples on my turn. Yeah, I think tap out for Ripples on my turn. We'll fetch and clear. Throw down Ripples. Got a Force of Will to stop a combo attempt. And then I can use Ripples to dig for more interaction or otherwise grow this creature. Let's say yes. Get back. I think Force of Will over Fairy. And I think I don't play Psychic Frog to hold up double Force of Will. It seems like I am probably going to bury my opponent over time. And I'll just hold Brainstorm as a blue card. Oh, cool. Get back a Fairy. Or get back a Grafdigger's Cage. Yeah, I'll take that. So cast a Lotus Petal. Cast a Grafdigger's Cage. Let's just hold up as many counterspells as possible. We are not in a hurry to win this game. I'm going to hit in very large chunks, and I am making my opponent's life increasingly difficult. Wow. Yeah, so I will spend a mana to get a mana. Yeah. Let's play the one that's not blue. Pass. And now the life loss from Ripples of Undeath is not really going to be a problem anymore. Resolves. I lose 1 Force of Will. I still have 2 more. Yeah. I will take a Consign to Memory. Combat. Swing in for 5. Opponent goes to 8. I will mill 5 cards. I will return a... Doesn't really matter. I guess I have a Psychic Frog already. I'll return a Brazen Borrower. And let's just get my opponent dead next turn. In case there's some weird timing issue, I'm just going to sacrifice the artifact. So I have Force of Will, Consign to Memory, Grafdigger's Cage, Brainstorm available. After seeing this round play out, I think I have some thoughts about deck building with Ripples, but I think we'll save it for the end. Do we believe? Do we believe? I think we believe. We might believe in Psychic Frog instead, though. Psychic Frog draws any card, and drawing lands is relevant. So I think we are going to drop Psychic Frog on 1, and then hope to play this as follow-up on turn 2. This is a self-scaling card, but I think I need access to just about anything here. Yes. I might be dazing a 3-drop here. Yeah. Yeah, let's just not. Let's not let that get in play, and then like the Voltaic Key type stuff just becomes problematic immediately. I think I am just attacking for 1, and then evaluating after the draw. Okay. All right. At some point, I might have to consider. Well, maybe not with Blast Zone there now. Blast Zone is just a way to nuke the frog. Awkward Brainstorm is awkward. Okay. This is fine. I'm going to redraw all of this stuff. Yeah. So since my opponent can just kill Psychic Frog with Blast Zone, I don't think I'm going in on it any further than just this. We'll just deal our 1. Redraw the land that I know about. I think play the thing that attacks for points of damage. And then pass. And some decent portion of the time I end up casting the 1 ring next turn, which is fine. I may or may not be able to successfully daze something that I would like to daze this turn. I am able. So we'll bounce one of these back. My own 1 ring kind of getting stuck in my hand here. It's possible that that just becomes daze food, even with Blast Zone here. My opponent probably can't activate Blast Zone and make Urza Saga tokens. Sometimes I hit 2 colored cards here, and I can just go to town. Sometimes I also draw Wasteland. All right. Let's draw my card with Psychic Frog first. Okay. Let's mill. Did not get to return anything, so I have no colored cards to cast this off my double Chrome Mox situation. Unfortunate. So we are passing. Which is probably horrifying from my opponent's point of view. We'll see how they want to handle this turn cycle. Yes. Next turn's like definitely spooky for me. Maybe this turn's spooky for me. Sure. Now my frog can go. Candelabra is some spice. All right. Some weird stuff can happen. So I have artifact, instant, land. I can discard a creature to make this a 4/5. Ignoring Urza Saga, my opponent has 3, 4, 5 mana. So they could Urza Saga token, Urza Saga token. Wait, no, that's not accounting for Candle. So let's go ahead and fire in and see what my opponent does. So send it. So there is a 4/4. So now let's make this fly. I can junk artifacts, assuming that My opponent will always have artifacts in there. And we can see what they do with the Grim Monolith / Candelabra. So they can untap Urza's Saga. Oh, Urza's Saga and Ancient Tomb. Sure. Oh, and Blast Zone. We'll see how my opponent treats the remainder of this turn. So this currently trades. I can discard a card to make it not trade. I think I'm just going to pass priority to my opponent, though. I'm currently drawing a card. Cool. Here's a new Goyf. I'm always doing this. Am I playing the One Ring? I think I'm playing the One Ring. I think I'm kind of scared what happens on this next turn. Maybe I establish the lifelinker this turn and don't let this get pithing needled. Sure. This is just a strange assortment of things. I'm not going to 4. I have a lot of things to be thinking about. I don't know what all is going to be in my opponent's game 1 deck list. Like, as soon as I see this, I kind of assume that we're not on the most stock of deck lists. If my opponent's making this decision, they almost certainly have something like a Shadow Spear that is about to gain them some life. Shadow Spear would be a little weird in game 1, I guess. Okay, so we have avoided the ring getting pithing needled. My opponent is going to needle Psychic Frog so I can't fly through. Oh, that's a lot. I mean, this sort of thing is why I have null rods in the sideboard. Sure. If opponent is going to make more constructs, they should probably think about doing it now. While I don't have wastelands I can mess around with an Urza Saga. I win if I find Brazen Borrower and Blast Zone is not available. Maybe that's a reason to wait. It's definitely an interesting game, though. I will be taking a hit for 8. That's fine. Sure. So let's cast the One Ring. This buys me a turn. Ripples? I like this card, but if this game is purely just answer Pithing Needle, I think I am fine playing Ripples. Yeah. I haven't done any combat math for, like, does Blast Zone just kill me? My opponent can do that math. So there's an untap. My opponent can untap some lands now. Presumably make some more Urza Saga construct tokens. And I imagine that being attacked with 4 construct tokens ends up killing me. My opponent can also just Blast Zone away my Psychic Frog. Oh wait, I have the One Ring protection for a turn. I'm alright for a little while. I'd like this Blast Zone to be tapped. We've got an untap. Where's my lightning bolts? Oh, that's annoying. This is a trigger that can be responded to. Ooh. I might not have a chance to get back my cool toys. We draw a Wasteland. My opponent can just nuke my graveyard right here, so I don't get a chance to bring back this Brainstorm. Oh wait, no, sorry, that Brainstorm was already in graveyard. There's not a pass. So this is 1 trigger that mills 3. So yes, I will get back Brazen Borrower. Alright, so I need my opponent to fuck up their Blast Zone, or forget about Blast Zone. That's how I get lethal with Psychic Frog. How do I make that happen? Probably not by drawing attention to it by wastelanding it. Feel confident about that. Okay. I don't know, maybe they don't think this is an issue. Maybe I do wasteland the Blast Zone. Maybe I need them to just use it for mana, and then I do this bounce. I think that's the out. So activating the Blast Zone will get rid of their Grim Monolith. They make a token, and we are Blast Zoning. Now I can play a blocker, I can remove one of these. That is probably not going to be enough. That's fine. My opponent can get more Urza Saga tokens beyond that. I don't know if Candelabra is correct, but it absolutely beat my fucking ass this game. I'm going to see how many construct tokens my opponent attacks with, and then I am going to concede. I imagine that the answer is just 6. Vexing Bobble. Yeah, dead. Okay, so we want Null Rod. We want Consign to Memory. Force of Negation is playable. I don't know if I actually want to attack Urza Saga construct tokens. Like, some portion of the time, I should just be ending the game before those are super relevant. Dismember, I think, is more playable than Long Goodbye. Dismember, 1 mana interact with Glaring Fleshraker is more relevant. I'm not interested in Echo. I think the One Ring is probably slow. I think that gets me these first 6, and then, like, do I want some amount of additional interaction in place of Tamiyo? Despite my opponent's Vexing Baubles that can shut off my counterspells? I think so. I think I've just got to get myself out of the early game here. Is turn 1 Null Rod good? Let's find out. I think I turn 1 Null Rod. I don't think I turn 1 Frog here. I don't think I risk some of the more powerful Grim Monolith openers. Although the downside is that if my opponent just leads on something like Urza Saga, Ancient Tomb, that maybe outdoes Frog still. Sure. That resolves. That resolves. And make a big Psychic Frog. And hopefully just spiral the game out of control very quickly. I'm probably pitching both of these cards. Not 100% sure. That's kind of my current plan. Sure. Opponent is plussing on Soul Guide Lantern, which isn't going to do anything to actually stop my Frog. All in? Just keep my opponent from tutoring. Just deal 5 damage to the Karn immediately. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Fly. I'll junk my lands. Combat. Send at Karn. Draw a card. Chrome Mox. Not doing an awful lot right now. The opponent's going to repeat that. It's not a problem. I can just discard a card. The Psychic Frog again, and then nuke the graveyard. So, discard Chrome Mox. Get flying. 1, 2, 3. Go to combat. Send at Karn. Karn dies. I draw a card. Force of Will, not strong, but whatever. I'm going to have a roughly 2-turn clock with Psychic Frog. So hopefully this is just fine. That's rough. Sure. What did my opponent do with the scrying? Okay, so they liked one of them. So Daze is currently castable at 2 mana and might counter something meaningful like a One Ring or a Glaring Fleshraker. Not this turn. I believe I hold up Hardcast Daze. It's possible that my opponent accidentally plays around it, but the ability to counter a 4-drop right now seems important. Important enough that I think I do this at end step. Put back a Lotus Petal. I'll draw this land. The Hardcast Daze situation is a little awkward. I think I'm just jamming Frog, though. I think it's so likely that my opponent just accidentally plays around a Daze. So I think I am going to put myself in a situation where I could potentially double Daze a future spell. That is occurring. That is protection from everything for 1 turn, but the Null Rod is still in play, so like my opponent dealt 4 damage to themselves to do something that may or may not end up having a meaningful impact on the game. They denied me 1 card draw and some amount of damage. No. I guess I replicate this. No, I don't, because I have Daze as well. So I'll just counter that. Let's just not let that happen. 3 cards into Psychic Frog. Just make mana a bottleneck. That sounds pretty good. Daze. Force of Will. Get my opponent for 4 on that. Draw a card. I'm interested in brainstorming into Wasteland. That's not Wasteland. Let's put back Lotus Petal at the bottom, and then Brainstorm, cast a second body. So either one of these Psychic Frogs is lethal, assuming a couple of Ancient Tombs get tapped. All right, we ran over our opponent there. I'm now on the draw. My dazes get noticeably worse. On the draw, I might just want more answers to a Glaring Fleshraker that's played out, or Urza's Saga tokens. Seems fine. Yeah, I have Force of Negation to potentially stop something broken from happening, and I can play a turn 1 creature. Now, are there some problems with the hand beyond that? No, this hand is perfect, and I don't know what you're talking about. This is the definition of a fuck it, we ball hand. That's fine. That's fine. I have to counter a Vexing Bauble if my opponent plays one. That's fine. Cool. Land is great. Means I don't have to YOLO quite as hard. I think because of Vexing Bauble, I'm still putting these various artifacts into play. Yeah. Photo? Hello? Photo? Go grab an Underground Sea and deploy a threat. I'm going to be pretty damn aggressive with this Force of Negation. My opponent went to 5. So when I get the opportunity to take down a reasonable card, I will probably just do so. I could brainstorm to make this bigger. I think I'm just going to attack for 2. Yeah. And it would be cool if I brought something back here. Psychic Frog. Okay. So now I just play that out. Then I have Consigned to Memory for the Urza's Saga trigger. And Force of Negation for a meaningful spell that my opponent plays. No constructs for you. Absolutely not. Now my opponent is sitting on 3 mana. Has more mana. I counter it. Nope. Sorry, opponent, but I have the perfects over here. Ooh. That's very good. Assuming that I hit a blue card off either one of these. So let's Psychic Frog draw first. Sure. Mill 4. Alright, I did not hit a blue card, so I don't have Force of Will available immediately. I don't think I'm going to immediately discard a card to Psychic Frog, for if my opponent Pithing Needles it. I think both of these cards are too valuable. What am I afraid of? The One Ring? The One Ring this turn would be pretty rough. It is mana. It's not technically mana yet. That is my opponent's last card. That is resolving. So my opponent could funnel some mana into Blast Zone to get rid of one of these 2 creatures another turn down the line. Alright, so the plan is get rid of this one. That's reasonable. It is the one that is ending the game. I think I like that decision. I'm not sure that that decision has to be made immediately, though. I may want this Lotus Petal for mana. I don't think I am discarding it here. Let's resolve our Psychic Frog draw first. Ripples. Yeah, I'll mill 6. Nice. So that's my insurance policy for later. But I don't have a blue card yet. Let's do this because Vexing Bauble exists. Let's drop this. Sure. Actually, did I just take myself off of lethal next turn? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. Yes. Unsurprisingly, naming Psychic Frog. So that's great. Let's mill some cards. So, bam. Yes. I'm going to return a Brazen Borrower. If I Brazen Borrower Pithing Needle out of play, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 damage this turn. So I think we'll just hold. I wanted a blue card for Force of Will more than anything else here. So send it. Goodbye, Goyf. Psychic Frog be Psychic Frogging. Brainstorm's fine. I'll cast it. I wouldn't mind hitting a land drop. Yeah, that's a hell of a fucking land drop. Let's swamp. 2 down. Play Wasteland. Wasteland City. Just constrain my opponent's mana a little bit. Yeah, you can untap your Monolith. So now we'll mill. Oh, there's a Null Rod. I'm into it. Note that we have a gajillion different paths to victory here. Just fetch, grab a land, go to Punchies, draw a card. There's a long goodbye. Yeah, and yeah. Like, we can just as easily bounce Pithing Needle out of play and try to kill my opponent this turn, but, like, how do they win from here? Yeah. Let's turn a mana into a mana. Yeah. I guess there's still, like, Dismember. Hit ya. Draw a card. There's a Lotus Petal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't discard that currently. I'm fine just casting that. And passing. We'll hold up Force of Will, pitching, ponder. I can junk this on end step if I want. Probably seems fine to do. Yeah. Pay a mana, yes. Return a Consigned to Memory. Fantastic. Go to combat. Send in for 1. After no blocks, we'll discard some stuff and finish off the game. I can probably end that a turn or 2 sooner, but I'm just in 0 danger of death. Alrighty. This is final round here. I think we're 3-1 currently. We have Psychic Frog backed by at least 1 Force of Will. Yeah, that's fine. And we'll try to address other cards. This is much less scary for me than a Delighted Halfling would be. That would be shutting off my counter spells. We could be playing against a Nadu deck. Noble Hierarch is sometimes indicative of an Infect deck. Infect is not super commonly played right now, but it is on my radar when I see Exalted Creatures. Springheart Nantucko. That makes a Gaia's Cradle very good, very fast. I think I'm just going to force that as a tempo play and assume that I draw another blue card in the next turn cycle or so to be able to make another reasonable play. Hey, another blue card to make a reasonable play. I think I'm keeping the One Ring. I think that's castable this game. That's another Force of Will. That's my fourth force. I don't have anything reasonable to do with my mana this turn. That would have been a great time to draw a Goyf or whatever. That represents Delighted Halfling, so this is or maybe Allosaur Shepherd as well. So this is a force that or don't force anything ever again situation. It is possible that that is the bait and something else follows this up immediately. That's fine. All right. So then hopefully we just find a blue card or a land with this draw. Blue card. Fantastic. Send it in. Land would be so hot. Land. Nice. So we'll fetch. I think I'll grab a basic here in case it becomes relevant later. And slam the One Ring. In case we have something weird like Bowmaster to worry about, I'll go ahead and do my draw now. You might see a Dryad Arbor end of turn. We do. So we are seeing multiple Misties as lands here. Ooh, it's fucking natural order time. Absolutely not. Force Pitch Tamiyo? Yes, that is my fourth Force of Will. Thank you for asking. Ooh, so this is Cephalid Breakfast, or maybe Nadu Breakfast, but with natural order as a finisher. Cool. So, let's draw some cards. Echo is not exciting here after I've exhausted my opponent on resources. I could hit my opponent for a very, very, very large amount of damage, though. I think I'm going to give my opponent the opportunity to block. I would be fine with that. They don't. I'm going to discard this Echo. I don't think I'm realistically casting this game. And if I do, I'm casting it from the graveyard. So we'll draw. That's great. Go ahead and ponder. Another Daze? Would I like to be able to double Daze? Sure. Again, I am full on out of Force of Wills at this point. Double Daze is not super relevant against a lot of things at this stage. Ooh. So I can double Daze that, but that probably doesn't do me any good. So I think that's just resolving, unfortunately. And then my opponent gets to do Nadu bullshit. I'm going to skip to end of turn or relevant plays, because this is pretty boring. Okay, at this point, my opponent has revealed a Collector Oof, so my ability to just draw myself out of this with the One Ring goes away immediately. I think given that play, I am now willing to concede to my opponent's mid-range value plan that they've got going on here. Yeah, while drawing all four Force of Wills early on was fantastic for those first couple of turns, it meant that I couldn't rely on them once I was pulling ahead in the game. And without any spot removal, I could not deal with the onboard stuff. So I am into spot removal. Force of Negation for natural order specifically is a thing. I don't really think Echo Vians should be in the deck. We're going to start by cutting those. I 100% want all 4 spot removal spells. The Dazes fall off fast, but really help when my opponent just shoves a 3-drop on turn 2 or a Green Sun on turn 3. Let's go Tamiyo's out, and let's assume that Ripples are slow here. And let's just make sure that I cover Natural Order and Green Suns a little more strongly. As long as I can get this card into play on turn 2, this hand is reasonable, although perhaps unexciting. And we need to find a land here. We do. I am into all of these cards. I think I'm going to go ahead and put Marsh Flats on bottom. And we'll play out the Lotus Petal just in case my opponent were to do something weird like have Vexing Bauble. In a slightly older Legacy world, you often wait to play out these things because of cosmetic endings and such hitting cards. So I think I am Slamming this one immediately over Frog. The upside of Frog is that I can play Frog into One Ring, but Frog is blue for pitching to these cards. Now let's do Frog into One Ring. I am not sure on that decision. I could sit there and think about it for 5 minutes, but I don't think I am going to. Sure. So let's go ahead and fire in immediately. Do not expect that my opponent is going to chump block here. I'll just draw my card. More ring. Sure. Let's do it. Get protection from everything. Draw a card. And then hopefully I just tempo my way to victory from here. Probably dropping a large creature next turn. I'm probably not playing this secondary Psychic Frog. That's just not really in the cards here. No Dryad Arbor attack. There could be some sort of Court of Calling nonsense coming. We'll just kind of passively keep that in mind. Draw some cards. A lot of gas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Effectively 9 cards. If Psychic Frog becomes Doomblade in combat, I am fine with that. My opponent could be casting something like an Endurance here. That doesn't happen. After no blocks, I think I am comfortable discarding at least one card here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, assuming I play one card. This is fine. Draw. That's not bad. I think I am okay playing this, though. I still probably have 2 pieces of interaction available. Ooh, no play whatsoever. Fuck that card in particular. That's bad. Now I can eat something like a natural order. Did I just get away with fucking murder? Holy shit, I just got away with murder. Alright. Well. Draw? Sure. I'm gonna play a land. Stuff might happen in combat. Send them? There are no blocks. I'm fine discarding a land here. I think I'm fine taking action on Allosaurus Shepherd immediately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Junk of Brainstorm. This is fine. I might end up discarding some cards to Psychic Frog from here or something, depending on what exactly I draw. I think this is overall okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I am just going to discard a Psychic Frog to a Psychic Frog and leave up Brazen Borrower Bounce this time. Gaia's Cradle. I counter it. Yeah, that is not happening. So let's Force of Negation there. Pitching a Psychic Frog. That was easy. How many cards did my opponent keep this game? Kept a 6-card hand. Just had no business spells. There's a chance that if my opponent does not play out Allosaurus Shepherd immediately, but saves it to try to Allosaurus Shepherd and Piece of Gas in the same turn, that catches me off guard. I think my opponent had a little wiggle room there. And I think we will keep the same overall plan. Okay, so assuming that my Ponder gets me to some piece of interaction, I think this is going to be fine. I can double Ponder on turn 1 if necessary and work towards playing the One Ring, which is hopefully fine. Or we can just do this. We'll imprint one of these Ponders, drop our black source, and get Psychic Frog going on turn 1. I need Psychic Frog to find me... No Surveil Land end of turn. I need Psychic Frog to find me probably a counterspell. Bot removal is fine too. I mean, that's annoying, but fine. Like, I just turn the One Ring into removal. Alright, I think I just attack. I think we just send this in and discard the One Rings to it. Moto lag is so real. And then we'll do it one more time. Draw a card. It is a Delta, which is like perfectly fine with Ponder. We'll fire off Ponder. Ooh, yeah. I am interested in 2 of these cards. Let's go no shuffle. Let's take my opponent off of white, which could potentially remove my Psychic Frog. Then I'll want to fetch next turn before I do a Psychic Frog draw. Yeah, you can absolutely hit me. That's fine. So yeah, go to combat. Send in with Psychic Frog. No blocks. I'll fetch. I think I Surveil Land here. No to Lotus Petal. Deal 3 to my opponent. Draw a card. Fantastic. I think I just attack mana. Like, you can have Collector Oof. That's just not the most relevant right now when I'm going to stabilize the board versus attackers, and I already just have a source of card advantage. I can play Brazen Borrower for tempo that is worth a lightning bolt that cantrips, which would be perfectly fine. Nice. I think we are good attacking for 3. Opponent goes to 10. Draw a card. Drop a 5/6. Pass the turn. Opponent's got a land drop. So, I can go for just Brazen Borrower bounce, get in there this turn. I think it is fine to do so. But there's Endurance to think about, which would be a little annoying. If my opponent endurances my graveyard, I can have land creature in there. This would still have Death Touch. Yeah, that's fine. Let's go ahead and Petty Theft this out of the way. It is Endurance. Does junk my graveyard. I'll take that out of the way. Oh, right, there is a creature over there as well. Whatever, I'm still Death Touching and trading with this while drawing 3 cards. Probably discard a land safely here as well. Make it very easy to kill next turn. Draw a card. Force of Will is fantastic. So now I make a land drop. Chrome Mox is back on, so I can play this as an additional threat while Force of Willing something like a Nadu that drops. I respond with this. I don't even counter this. Both of my cards are just going to fly. It's just irrelevant to counter that when I could save it for something like a Swords to Plowshares that follows it up. With the white mana tapped, I think I can now just force that. I can't think of anything that is single green that gets my opponent out of this spot. So we end up with a pretty impressive 4-1 record for this deck. Alright, so what do we think of Cyman's Pile here? Not bad. It's definitely awkward. I don't know that you get to get away with Wasteland when you want really turn 1 Psychic Frog, like Wasteland not tapping or Psychic Frog when you can try to deploy Psychic Frog a turn early is really important. But I get that we live in an Eldrazi heavy world where Wasteland definitely matters. Maybe you're not the best against Urza's Saga if you don't have access to that card. I think Echo of Eons is the worst card in the deck. I don't believe that we cast it a single time in this league. I believe that I boarded it out almost every single round. Like, the ability to discard it with Psychic Frog, draw 7, lethal my opponent in one shot is cool, but it works against one of my long-term plans. And refueling a combo opponent when I already have like strong control of the game because I have a source of card advantage going doesn't really make sense. I think if you want to play Ripples, you go all in on it and you make it a central part of your plan. Like maybe you play 1 more Ripples and then you play 1 more thing that could gain you life, like an Exsanguinator Cavalry or something like that. Tamiyo didn't feel overly impressive in this deck. That was one of the other things that I often went towards boarding out. I don't think Tamiyo wins the game very well in this deck. Like, you're very good at countering things if you Tamiyo Ultimate, but you can't actually remove creatures permanently. You can only temporarily bounce them. So I don't know how hot I am on Tamiyo conceptually. But ultimately, the question that you should be asking if you're playing a blue-black deck in Legacy is, why am I not playing one of the established Tier 1 decks? I think there is merit to jamming this card. I think this card is very scary. It is a spiraling source of card advantage that also gains a relatively large amount of life. But without access to removal, like sometimes like an Orcish Bowmasters is going to come down and then a bunch of these cards look rather embarrassing and you just have zero way to interact with that. And I am not the biggest fan of that. So I want to get rid of Echo. I want to find a way to get some game 1 removal into the deck. And I think if we're going to Ripple, we should Ripple harder. Maybe try to get something else that synergizes with the graveyard as well. Something like a delve creature or something else that uses the graveyard in some capacity. I was surprised how much Vexing Bauble destroyed this deck. Like, when you lay it out like this, it's very clear. But conceptually going into the matches, that wasn't something that I immediately understood. And Vexing Bauble is surprisingly good at shrinking this into range of red removal. As far as the sideboard goes, I think I liked the stuff that was here. I think Null Rod is awkward, but is fine because when it's good, it is so good. So I'm gonna give this one a thumbs up. This was a really solid deck. You need some pieces for it, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on your order. And folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya.